Hey there, it's Andrea, and welcome to the Voice of Influence podcast. Today I have with me Mr. Eric Seacrest. For a long time, Eric Seacrest was the CEO of a family company that published newspapers. After selling the newspaper company, he began a second career in 2001, becoming the executive director of Mid Nebraska Community Foundation. Seacrest has also served on boards of banking, hospital, economic development, environmental and educational organizations in Nebraska, and just in general is a difference maker in his community, in his state. And I am just really honored to have you with me here today, Eric Seacrest.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure. Looking forward to this. I'm proud of you. For full disclosure, Andrea serves on the board of directors of the community foundation that I get to be the executive director of.
That's right. That's right. And the way that we met was really interesting. Somebody had invited me to be on the board, asked me to be on the board, and I had accepted. And then you reached out to me and you said, I usually know everybody, but I don't know you. I need to get to know you. And we met. And I don't know if you might have even have read my book by the time we sat down. I was like, are you kidding me? This guy's thorough. This is awesome.
I think you got it correctly.
Last year we sat down and had another lovely conversation where I just wanted to get to know you better and understand where you come from. And at that point in time, I knew I wanted to interview for the podcast. And this is just the right timing. And I'm really glad that we could do this because I interview a lot of people who have specific expertise in a certain area. Maybe they've written a book or they're the CEO of an organization. You have done so many things and you've been a CEO of an organization. You are the executive director of a very important nonprofit. And you've also had all this community experience. And as I've watched you over a couple of years that I've known you, I've realized how much you care about the same things that I care about, which is other people having a voice, other people feeling agency and making a difference and that sort of thing too. And I'm like, man, this is a person that I want to learn from. And I think a lot of people do. And so I want to start with, first of all, your background. So you were in the newspaper business. Can you tell us what got you into the newspaper business?
The family business was newspapers, beginning with my great grandfather, well over 100 years ago. So I was the fourth generation in the business. And my father was a editor of the Lincoln Journal, and he enjoyed doing that, and he enjoyed making a difference. And my mother, uh, who was an amazing person also, she was a host of a few TV shows in Lincoln. So I come from a family that's been in the communication business for a long, long time.
Yeah, you have. Okay, so I've got a note. Like, were they talking about newspaper and TV all the time? I mean, was that something that you guys talked about around the dinner table? What was that like for you?
Was mainly talking about people and about what was going on in the community. I grew up in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I had an affection for the community and many friends and people in their life. So I was the victim of a very happy childhood, and I've been extraordinarily lucky in many ways to have the background I have and had support all through my life and just appreciate those things a great deal.
Did you have siblings?
I'm the oldest of five.
Oldest of five. Okay. So you went from Lincoln and then you came to North Platte. That's where we both live now. What was that transition?
I came out to North Platte thinking I'd be here maybe a year or two. I had the chance to start in the editorial department, and I had a chance to work in every department of newspapers and really learn what it takes to produce good newspapers and make some money. And I also found myself really liking the size of North Platte and the location of the first of all, the size, it was big enough to be challenging and interesting, and yet small enough that one person or a few people could make a difference.
Mm.
That fit me well. The location is interesting. It has pretty much most of the things of the East, but this is where the West begins out here. So we have a little mixture of both cultures, and it's just an interesting, fun place.
So you said that you got to learn what makes a newspaper successful. I'm curious, obviously things have changed, but
Oh my goodness, yes.
at that time,
Yes, I was lucky. I got to experience the golden years of the newspapering when computer technology was coming on, and I computerized everything I could in that. We were computerized. We had some extraordinarily gifted people, really national class people that I got to experience. Um, and I'm grateful for that. We often set the bar high and wanted to produce good newspapers, wanted to be successful. Uh, Not every venture was without challenge. I remember when I wanted to convert the North Platte Telegraph, which had been an evening paper, into a morning paper, and which was where the success was. Uh, and most of our carriers quit, our delivery carriers. So everybody was out delivering papers as well as doing our regular job. But we got through it, carriers hired, and we went on to greater circulation.
mm,
Uh, that was a long time ago now. The newspaper industry is unfortunately a dying industry, uh, and which is sad, but the world keeps changing, and we all need to adapt to what the world is.
what did you like about the newspaper business?
Well, it was words, it was photos, it was news, it was a chance to talk about how to make something better or hear complaints about something. It was it was life. It was life on on newsprint, and every day it was a new product every day. New challenges. Yeah, there's so much to like.
Mm.
But I also realized as time went on that the newspapering industry had passed its peak, which is why we sold.
Yeah, I would love to hear the story about that because you sold in 2001. That's
We
quite
sold in
right.
2000, early
2000.
2000, we completed the sale. And that
Did you
was,
know? How did you know?
we did a pretty good study of my board. We had a board that had family people as well as independent directors. A small board, but 5 people. And we did a good study. And we concluded that instead of being a buyer of newspapers, it was better to be a seller. Also, at the time, stocks were selling at high valuation. Not only did we conclude it was in the long-term interest to be a seller instead of a buyer, I had bought newspapers before, but it was also a good time to sell. Along the way, I've been very lucky, and luck and chance play a big part of life, and we chose to take advantage of a good chance
Hmm.
and never look back.
At that point, I'm imagining that you probably could have retired. You probably could have, spent more time on the beach somewhere, out golfing, whatever. What would you have done? Like what's your
I still
activity?
go to the beach every year
You
somewhere.
still go to the beach every year, but yeah, I think it could have been a lot more than that. But instead of doing that, you decided to take on a new career.
Well, I never contemplated not doing something, and by chance again, there was an opening at the community foundation. It was
Do you mind telling us how old you were at that time? Do you mind sharing
Oh
that?
my goodness, I would have been 55, I think. And so there was an opening, and I knew the community foundation. I had set up a couple of funds, uh, for one for a community project, and another as a legacy gift from the sale of the newspapers for the community. And my family, my uncle, my grandfather had been involved in setting up community foundations. So I knew the potential of community foundations, and the potential was to grow. They were going to grow. One fund at a time, you're going to keep adding. And they were going to help communities, and they were going to help nonprofits, and they were going to be something that the donors felt good about because it was going to do some good for, in many cases, for a long period of time, because most of the funds are endowments. And I stayed with it, and we've grown an immense amount, and we get to do a lot of good in the community and in this entire region. And it's very satisfying.
Mm.
And it's also satisfying because we've earned trust. And that's just a good feeling when someone hands you a check for, say, $1 million or 5,000 or whatever, because it's important no matter what the amount is. And they trust you to take good care of that money and to do what they wanted you to do with it. If 350 different funds, they all have a different set of specifications, different purposes, etc. And it's humbling and satisfying to have that trust.
What was one of the challenges for you when you set out on this new career path? You had a vision for what you wanted to see happen, and you cared about the community. What were there any challenges in your path along that way?
Well, I was lucky. I pretty much had gotten the skill sets needed to be the executive of a community foundation by chance at earlier things I'd done, whether it's investments or being in the community, working with nonprofits. I knew accounting, I knew marketing, so I was lucky. I wasn't preparing for that at the time, but I got prepared
Mm.
by doing things, which is the great thing about knowledge. It's such a wonderful thing. You give knowledge to someone else, and you still have it, and they have it, and it just keeps expanding. And and the things you learn along the way, you never know when they're going to come in handy someday somewhere else, and it happens all the time.
Hmm. I guess there's similarities, of course, there's similarities because it's something that you were passionate about. So your experience with the newspaper and your experience with the foundation were really all driven by this desire to help and to make positive change.
Uh, they all were full of interesting and enjoyable relationships and
Mm.
a chance to provide service and to be supportive of things that I cared about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's accurate. Another thing that was new with the Community Foundation is it's a volunteer board. It's a nonprofit as opposed to a profit. I got the chance to work with a larger board, but I also always believed in letting everybody have their voice, which is your theme. I welcome the process. When we're deciding how much to give away for grants, everybody gets a say. And then we find out where that middle point is. And it's a part of the excitement of it's neat to give everybody a voice. Uh, when we get involved in a community project, the first thing I always strive to have happen is get everybody who's involved in this and the stakeholder, get them together and get their point of view, because only then can you identify the opportunities and the pitfalls. When someone's left out, it'll bite you, and you got to go back and then fix it. And
Mm.
uh, so there really is much to be gained by letting everybody who cares and has a reason to care express what they're thinking, and then you can put the plan together.
Do you think you always had that mindset that it would be great to have everybody's point of view to get all the voices, heard and that sort of thing? Or has that evolved? Did that evolve as you experience life?
Well, maybe it's something I learned along the way. I learned it, I think, because it works. uh, individuals can produce wonderful things, great pieces of writing and music and all that. But when it comes to community things, you're dealing with lots of people, and it's finding what works in that community, and more than one voice is helpful for
Hmm.
sure.
Well, when you're working on a community project, when you have been involved with those sorts of things, what do you see as okay? So we get everybody to the table, and we hear all the voices, but what about when there's conflicting opinions? How do you handle those situations?
Well, most of the time for community projects, there may not be conflicting opinions. There may be someone points something out that's a challenge that just needs attention and figure out how to get over that hurdle. Now, there are situations I get involved in things like housing or transportation. Those have been passions of mine. Uh, and often housing, and the goal is to have safe, affordable housing. And along the way, there are people that have a different point of view. There's slumlords. There's people who just mistrust government and mistrust regulation. Cities have learned around the world for hundreds of years you need some sort of regulation to have safe buildings and prevent disasters. And there has been a time I worked with a few people, and we were threatening to sue the city of North Platte because they weren't enforcing their own building code. They were letting people do whatever the hell they wanted, and it wasn't safe. So there is conflict, and now and then you need to show up, speak up, hire the attorneys, or do what you need to do to solve a problem. Yeah, along the way there is conflict, but not so much on when people say they want to build pickleball courts or tennis courts or whatever. The people that care about that will usually come through, and you find a way, a place to build it, and how to fund it, etc.
Do you welcome conflict? I mean, is that hard for you? Are you somebody that cares about whether or not somebody likes you? Or did you at one point in time in your life? Because I know that most of us mature in that area.
I would hope that people I like me. You're never going to please everybody. There's the world's way too big to even this community of North Platte is in this region is way too big. But even the people you might often have a different perspective from, even with those people, there's probably some areas where you can have some good visits and something in common. If it's a situation where you're looking for votes to get enough votes to get some passed, then some people may have a different opinion. I've been promoting good roads in this region for many, many decades. And early on, and the only time we had one election on the transportation issue, it was to design a viaduct, a needed viaduct. And it went to a vote, and I did promotion for passage, and the vote came out 55% were for and 45% were against. And so it passed and all that. But along the way, I learned it doesn't matter how good the idea is, how needed it is, there's always going to be people who have a good reason not to be for it. They may just not like the spending money, period. They may, who knows? But, that's America, and it's good. And there have been times where the first effort to get it done didn't happen, and the second didn't happen. But if you never give up, eventually you can usually have some progress.
I'm curious from your experience, your life experience. Right now, it feels like there's a lot of tension in our country. I know looking at the history books that there have been plenty of times that there's tension in our country before. But how would you characterize what we're experiencing right now compared to maybe what we've experienced in the past? Do you have any wisdom for us on that?
What I think is different is the realities of situations are different. Let's just take the communication and media. Let's pick that one.
Yeah,
Media
something you're
is
an expert
different
in.
now than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 100 years ago. transportation is different. Who we can easily visit. Weapons are different. Yeah, so the realities that you live with are just change from time to time. And one of the challenges of the current time is traditional media doesn't have as influence. It's not the voice of influence it once was. But along with that change came less incentive to tell the truth. Our newspapers, the first goal is to be accurate, report accurately, get the scores of the game correct, get the results of the city council meeting correct. But today, since those medias are not as significant, and everybody can come up with their own opinion, and there's so many channels, and they've got to fill the air with talk all the time. Or there's fewer people that have a strong incentive to be truthful. And that really does color the environment. And part of earning trust is to be truthful. Not that we'll be perfect, because none of us are, but do the
Sure.
best you can.
Yeah. Well, I know that building trust is very important to you and to the foundation. And so I guess I'm wondering, what kind of cultural changes have you seen that have impacted charitable giving and community involvement?
Let's take charitable giving first. Proportionally fewer people are able and give to nonprofits than several years ago. And part of it is more people are stressed economically, perhaps. But fortunately, those with means have been able to give more. How the tax code is written does influence charitable giving and how they give. So that's been an influence. And definitely on the people participating in community things, that has changed a lot. People do not volunteer as much as they used to. They don't go to regular meetings. They don't go to church in the same proportions. So some of the things that are the glue to communities have eroded in some sense, but some are very strong. Change keeps happening.
What do you see as hopeful as you're looking at where we're at right now, where things are headed?
Oh, I wake up hopeful virtually every day, and I'm lucky that way. And I think if each of us just creates as much good in their own way, everybody gets to do it their own way, which is the beauty of America. You have that freedom to do that, and it's what a wonderful country we live in. There's plenty of opportunities for good. I believe strongly that when you see a chance to show up for something that's important to you, dear to you, choose to show up. I've certainly been blessed because I did show up. Those have produced highlights in my life. And it can come in so many ways of showing up because someone needs your support, or a nonprofit you care about needs the support, or showing up with the right words when someone passes away. And I've had a chance to eulogize many people. And those are good memories. There's just lots of ways to show up and be a champion for a cause or a person.
So why not? Why not do it? Why not wake up hopeful and make a difference, is what you're saying.
Well, yeah, why not? uh, yeah, it's a it's a beautiful world out there. It's an amazing world, and my goodness, what a great joy it is to be part of it and alive, and chance to interact with people that are also doing neat things and or just they're full of potential. They may be young people that are on their way that need, one of the things we get to do is give scholarships. We have lots of scholarships away, and it's a wonderful thing. It's such a great gift to give a young person some more education. There's just so many ways to do something that adds a little joy to someone.
I was thinking about how you care about people having a voice, but at the same time, you've had to be the leader making decisions over the years. How did you balance giving people a voice, giving them the opportunity to really feel like they could make a difference while at the same time having to provide direction and make decisions, the hard calls sometimes.
Well, yeah, rarely do you make everybody happy. That's accurate. That's just the way it is. Do the best you can do. And there's going to be a tomorrow. And the person that was on the opposite side of an issue one week, you might be together the next week. It happens a lot. Life will
And
go
live
on.
with it. It's
Life will
life.
go on. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. What do you feel like is one of the hardest decisions you've ever had to make in your life?
One of the principles I try to do is imperfect, of course, but try to avoid regret. Structure things so that it may not be perfect, but we don't have a big regret. Sometimes it's just have a good process for making a decision, whether it's where we're going to put a newspaper plant or how we're going to do investments. Just do the vetting, don't skip a step, and and make a decision and with consciously thinking about what the risks might be, just so that you don't have a big regret. That's a key principle. It helps get through choices.
That's fair. That's a simple but profound way to look at decision making. I feel like you have been maybe thinking about the impact that you're making, the legacy that you're leaving. It sounds like since you were young that that was something that you cared about from a long time ago. Is that true?
I don't think of it that way at all.
Okay.
I think about today,
Yeah.
and what are the opportunities today, and be alert to the improbable thing that happens that comes into your life that you take advantage of. I try to be really alert to unexpected things that develop and give them attention.
Like what?
Oh, just seeing somebody unexpectedly, take advantage of it, or some opportunity, some chance appears that I wasn't expecting. Think about, okay, what do I want to do with this? Or sometimes it's seeing a problem that I wasn't aware of. Okay, is there something maybe the community foundation or I could deal with? Or I'm talking with somebody and they say something that suggests that there's an opportunity for for something. Life is full of chance, and with some of these chances, there's a choice. Pay attention, don't pay attention, do something, don't do something. But I really marvel at the chances that come up in life that were unexpected, and they shape my life a lot.
I love that perspective. This has been just such a lovely conversation. And I am wondering, as we're kind of closing up, first of all, the Mid Nebraska Community Foundation has a website, contact information there. Is there, we can put that in the show notes, but what else do you want to say about the foundation before we close?
Well, wherever you live, there's probably a similar organization that you might benefit by learning about. Their capacity to do specific things that fulfill your own goals is quite amazing. The funds that we create are tailored to the donor. We serve donors, and it's enjoyable being on this side, taking down the notes. What's their story? What do they want us to do with this money? And most of the time we can do it. And that's what happens. And then we keep doing it and keep doing it. It's very enjoyable work.
So if somebody is interested in making a donation or starting a fund in a foundation of some kind, they should do what?
Reach out to the local community foundation. And there's about 1,000 good ones around this country. They're all over, and they do a lot of good work.
What last piece of advice do you want to give to us for those of us who would like to have a voice of influence?
If there's something that's really true to me, it's when you see a chance to do something for something that's dear, choose to show up. It's a great rewarding way to go about things.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for being a voice of influence, not just today, but and throughout your life, and certainly in our community, and every day as you show up and continue to make a difference. So thank you,
Well,
Eric.
thank you for what you do with your podcast and your books. And I'm proud that you're in this community and my friend.
Mm, feelings mutual.